ma'am.
Good afternoon,
Good
ma'am.
afternoon.
Some background
Good
sound.
afternoon, ma'am.
Your voice is clear, but some noise at the background. You know,
Yes, ma'am. But it is
Yes, ma'am.
echoing.
refresh your PC now.
Echoing, ma'am. Too much of echoing.
Voice will be easy. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Is the voice clear? Is the voice clear?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. But
Please
echo is
continue, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
But echo is coming, but continue, ma'am.
Echoes on this. Echoes in the midst of this. Is that okay? Shall I continue? Because there are some problems with the headphones.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am. It
ma'am.
is
yes,
clearly
ma'am.
audible.
No,
Okay,
okay,
then.
ma'am.
Please get. Yeah. I'll choose sign. Yeah. What did we complete in our earlier session? As far as I could remember, I think we were doing the Indo-European family of languages. Okay. And then we were discussing the two important
Yeah,
branches.
PIE,
Yeah, the Proto-Indo-European language.
Proto-Indo-European.
Yeah, in which we have seen the Western branch and the Eastern branch, right? So basically, the simple observation is that when we are trying to talk about the descent of English, from where this English
Not clear, ma'am.
sound is not clear, there's no
Ma'am, you
problem.
have logged in 3 IDs, ma'am. 3 different windows you have. If you can shut 2, I think that would stop.
I'm shutting this. I'm shutting this.
You're in 3 different
Hello?
logins.
You have, I think I shut all the windows except the CD glass. Now is that okay?
No, ma'am.
No,
Still you have
ma'am.
problem?
Still
Okay,
problem.
let me
No,
try.
ma'am.
Huh? Yeah,
Still
I'll try.
facing the problem, ma'am.
Echoes, and that's a problem now. Yeah. Okay, let me try.
Shut down all the 3 windows, ma'am. You are in 3 windows, 3 different windows.
Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
This is okay for you, but it has a lot of disturbance to my ears. If I don't use my headphones, it is okay for me, but it is not okay for you. What to do?
Ma'am, the only reason is if you can see the number of members logged in, you have 3 logins, ma'am. You see the number of
Yeah, yeah, I see number of participants here.
yeah, you have 3 logins.
Uh,
That is the reason for this echo.
there are no 3 logins here. Yeah, please mute yourself, please.
Divya, mute yourself. Divya, please mute yourself. Anyway, I will bear with the sound. Let me not waste my time now. So in an earlier session, we have been discussing basically the two major families in terms of Indo-European family of languages, right? And we were trying to discuss the Western branch and the Eastern branch, right? And today we'll continue with that. And if I could remember, I also told you that there are 4 important changes in which the evolution of language talks about, right? And what are those 4 important changes? 1, grammar. 2nd, pronunciation. 3rd, spelling. And 4th one is the vocabulary. So basically, if you see that there is a change in any language, changes are in these particular aspects. Okay, so our concern here is to know about the change in English, right? And yesterday when I met change in English. So when we talk about the descent of English, it is seen how English, we see that branch, it's very disturbing. Yeah, so when we take the Western, when we take West Germanic, we see, I'll just put this tree diagram very close to the camera. You please look at this. Is it visible?
No, ma'am.
Now?
No, ma'am.
Yeah.
No, ma'am.
Oh my God. Now?
Your cam is in off mode, ma'am. Your camera is in off mode.
Why? Oh, yeah. True. Thank you. Thank you. See. Now can you see this? Can you see this?
But not clear, ma'am.
It's blur, ma'am.
Blur, ma'am.
Clumsy, ma'am.
Yeah, you just look at the branch which I am trying to talk. Okay? You see this? Nazreen, please mute yourself. Shobha, mute. Yeah, you see this diagram. You see the West Germanic here. I said 2 family of languages, right? East Germanic and West Germanic. Eastern group and Western group. So when we talk about English, descent of English, our concentration is on the West Germanic, okay? So if you look at this, West Germanic, Old High German, then you have Modern German, which means Modern German is an offshoot of the Old High German. If you look at here, you see Old Low German, and Old Low German has 2 offshoots. Okay, these 2 offshoots you see, Dutch and Flemish. Now our concentration is only the last part of the West Germanic, because our look is for the descent of English, right? So we are looking at the place of English. So Anglo-Frisian.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, your background is blurred. That is why the book is not clear. When you're showing it, the book is becoming hazy.
So what shall I do now?
You have to remove the background to normal. Then we can see the book.
How should I do that?
If you no, this is someone else is presenting.
Yeah, that's
If
the
you go
problem.
to the three dots at the right hand side, over there you will see change background.
Okay, right hand side, three dots, and I
Change
have a
background
change background. I
to
clicked it.
normal.
Change background, I did.
Default, you have to put the one which is a circle with a cross kind of a thing in between.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
now it's clear, ma'am. Now it's clear.
That's wonderful. Thank you, dear.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
So I'm also learning. That's nice. Something is coming on the screen.
Someone is presenting, ma'am. Some
Amreen.
Sheikh.
Amreen, please stop presenting. Amreen. Yeah, anyway, but you can see the book, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now, so just concentrate on this, right? So Anglo-Frisian, you have Old Frisian, Old English. Then you have Modern Frisian. Now concentrate on this last part of the branch of the tree diagram. Okay. So Anglo-Frisian, Old English, Middle English, and Modern English. So when I say, where is the descent of English? Or what is the descent of English? Or how?
Ma'am, someone is representing something, ma'am. We can't see the book properly.
Please, Shivakumari, mute yourself. Shivakumari, please mute. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so now when somebody asks you what is the descent of English, your answer should be like in the Indo-European family of languages, and among the two major branches of the family of languages, that is the Eastern and the Western branch, English is from the West Germanic, again Common Germanic to East Germanic and West Germanic, and under the West Germanic you have Anglo-Frisian, and then Old English or Anglo-Saxon, Middle English, and Modern English. Okay, so these are, it says blur. Now what shall I do?
Can you repeat it again, ma'am?
It's clear, ma'am, what you're saying.
Yeah,
We have this in our book, ma'am.
yeah, please.
Page number 15, madam.
So on your instruction material, it seems it is there on page number 15. Okay, just look at that. But according to this textbook, in terms of language aspects, you see, this is how English is originated. Okay, so that is a basic thing which you have to understand as the students of English literature or English. Now, the next point of discussion is the Grimm's Law. Okay, Grimm's Law. Having discussed the theories of the origin of language, having discussed the descent of English, and concentrating on the specific aspect of English, now we are moving on to the first sound shift. Okay, I said there are changes, especially there are changes in 4 areas, right? Spelling, pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary. So when we say that there is a change in a language, we look at these 4 important aspects of language, right? So when we are looking at these 4 important aspects of language, we are concentrating on how changes are there in these 4 aspects. So now, in terms of the first sound shift, okay, we have to understand in language paper, if a lay person asks you what is Grimm's Law, okay, what is Grimm's Law, you must understand that Grimm's Law is nothing but the change in the sound system. And this change in the sound system is the first type of change. Okay, so Grimm's Law is, in terms of language paper, Grimm's Law takes a very important position. Okay, so great importance is attached to the consonantal changes. Consonantal changes which took place in Germanic. Why Germanic? Because I already showed you the diagram now. How English, when we look at the history of English, especially the language, we see how this English is descended, right? So in terms of sound shift, great importance is attached to the consonantal changes. Consonantal changes that took place in Germanic. Why? Because they distinguish Germanic from other Indo-European family of Indo-European languages. So these changes are also called with other name called the first sound shift. So when there is an objective question for you in your competitive examinations, the first sound shift is also called as dash. Then your answer should be Grimm's law. Okay? The first sound shift is also called as dash. Then your answer should be Grimm's law. So these sound changes are nomenclated with a name called the first sound shift. And you know the Danish linguist, okay, Rasmus Rusk, and the German.
Can you please repeat that question, please?
What question? Competitive exam question?
Yeah, exactly, ma'am.
Yeah, when there is a question like, what is the other name for Grimm's law? Your answer should be the first sound shift. Okay, Suresh?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. So the German philologist named Jacob Grimm. Okay, you see the law is after Grimm. Okay, Grimm's law, and the philologist Jacob Grimm, he observed certain systematic changes. He observed changes in the Indo-European plosives. Now you know, I think Dr. Nageshwara already started lesson 16, in which you have the sounds, right? Especially the consonantal sounds. So you see, in terms of out of the 44 sounds of English, you have 20 vowel sounds and 24 consonant sounds, right? So Jacob Grimm, when he observed that there are certain changes in the Indo-European plosives, what are plosives, what are stops, what are fricatives, what are affricates, all those things are there in lesson 16, where definitely I think the other teacher will discuss in detail. So our concentration here is only to understand how the changes took place in particular sounds. Okay, so when Jacob Grimm saw certain systematic changes in terms of Indo-European plosives or stops, and this evolution is in the Germanic family of languages. So Grimm formulated a theory in 1822 and named it as a sound shift theory, a theory of sound shift. Okay, hence the changes are known after his name. That is why it is called as Grimm's law. So now what is so importance of Grimm's law? Why it is so significant in terms of language paper? Where is the necessity for the students to understand Grimm's law? Okay, all these are the questions with which we have to explore ourselves in terms of this sound shift. So when Grimm's law is considered, we see Jacob Grimm stated that the Indo-European aspirated stops changed into unaspirated voiced stops in the Germanic. So when I discussed Indo-European family of languages, I made a mention of Eastern and the Western branch. And in the Western branch, I was concentrating on the Common Germanic, West Germanic, Anglo-Saxon, Middle English, and Modern English. That is how the family tree of language emerges, right? So when Jacob Grimm was observing the changes in terms of language family, we see that he observed that Indo-European voiced stops changed into Germanic voiceless stops. And again, these Indo-European voiceless stops got changed to Germanic fricatives. Now, what is his observation? First, Indo-European voiced stops changed to Germanic voiceless stops. Then, Indo-European voiceless stops changed to Germanic fricatives. So, Grimm based his law upon a comparative examination. He took many sets of examples, of Indo-European languages. For example, he took Greek, he took Latin, he took Sanskrit, with the forms of the Germanic languages, like English. So his examples were Indo-European to Germanic, Indo-European to Germanic, because English is from the Germanic family of languages, right? So then he made a theory, and he systematically observed how those changes took place. And then I'll just give you the examples. See, for example, Latin. Now I'll show you this. You just look at this. You take the Indian example. If I say Bhrata, what's the meaning of Bhrata? Brother. So what is the sound you see in Bhrata? Bha. Yeah. Vidhava. Dha to da. Bhrata, brother. Bha to ba. Bandham, dha to da. So just look at this. If I am I have to on my camera now. Now just look at this. Is it clear or blur again?
Not clear, ma'am.
Now?
Not.
So somebody just
Little bit, ma'am.
just know
But
somebody.
the letters are not clear.
Letters are clear, but
Letters are not clear.
Clear, ma'am.
One second. Change background. Can you see now?
No, ma'am.
oh, ma'am. Not clear, ma'am.
If the font size is somewhat big, we can see, ma'am. That's only the problem.
Now?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am, it is not clear, but something.
No. Just look at this diagram. Look at this diagram.
Just nearby camera, ma'am.
I kept where?
Yeah, you can continue.
Now you just look at this. You see this?
Better, ma'am.
Yes,
Yeah?
ma'am.
Can you see it? Can you see it? Yeah. Yeah, all those
Still blur, ma'am. Can you just read it out, ma'am? So that we note it down.
No.
Yes, ma'am. Explain it, ma'am.
Yeah, please mute. Please mute yourself and just look at it. I will explain.
FD.
All of you, please mute yourself and just look at it very carefully, and I will explain. My God.
First one, Pataka, like that. Padaga.
Somebody is Yeah, you please mute yourself. So when you saw this diagram, okay, when you saw this shift, okay, that itself is law as per Green. Okay, so if all those who have observed this diagram very carefully, you see the arrow marks down, right? Yeah. All those who have observed this diagram very carefully, you see the arrow mark downwards, right? Per to f, t to d, k to g, b to p, d to t, g to k, b to b, d to d, g to g. Okay? So if you see in terms of the present consonants of English out of the 44, out of the sounds of English now, you concentrate only on these down ones, right? These down ones. Okay? So what is happening now according to Jacob Grimm? Okay? In Indo-European voiced stops. You know, in consonants, there are pairs. P, B, T, D, K, G, F, V, Th, V. Okay, I think you have to look at my lips now. P, B, T, D, K, G, F, V, Th, V.
Ma'am, you are not visible, ma'am.
I'm not visible. No?
No, ma'am. Your face is not visible.
Yeah, it is visible, ma'am. It is visible. You are
It is visible, ma'am. Lips are not.
What can I do for that? Okay, you see p, b. So when I articulate that sound, my lips are very active, right? Okay, p, b, t, d, k, g, f, v, th, v. You see my organs in terms of articulation of these particular sounds. Okay, so when I'm trying to utter those sounds, you look at those sounds in terms of pairs. Okay, p, b is a pair. So in that pair, one is voiceless and one is voiced. Okay, and how do you identify that a particular sound is voiced or voiceless? I'll give you one small example now. Okay, all of you, okay, at least who are there visible now, please on your camera. All of you on your camera, but please don't mute yourself, unmute yourselves. On your camera. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, you take your pointed finger now. Can you see me? I can't see myself. Yeah, take your pointed finger, put it on your Adam's apple. Put it on your Adam's apple. Put it here. Sureka, put it on your Adam's apple. Not on the lips, here. Here. Oh, I am not visible.
Next.
Okay. Is that okay now? Can you see me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Now put it on your Adam's apple. Okay, don't press it. Satyavati, don't press. Just touch it lightly. Don't press like this on the Adam's apple. Okay? Okay. Now be like kids. Okay? Don't be very shy. Okay? You think that you're kids, kindergarten kids now, and utter this. S is there, no? S sound, okay? That particular sound, you just don't press your Adam's apple. Sureka, please mute, Sureka. Okay, just listen to me, okay? And look at me. your pointed finger on your Adam's apple very lightly. Don't press it. Take the sound S. Okay, S as in sun. You put it on your Adam's apple and just utter it as I do now. All of you try, please. All those who are visible to me, I think I can see that they are doing, but all those who are not visible to me, you please try for yourself. This is how you will identify whether it is a voice stop or a voiceless sound. Okay, so this is an exercise. Now tell me, do you find any vibration here when you articulate that sound? No.
No.
I can see Lakshmi nodding. No.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, I can see Shiv Kumari also nodding. No. So now this is called a voiceless sound. Clear? Okay. Now, so every sound you try for yourself after this class. All the consonant sounds you try like that. Put your pointed finger on your Adam's apple and don't press it and articulate it. Then when you don't feel the vibration on your Adam's apple, it is called a voiceless sound. Okay. Now do another exercise. Now put your finger on your Adam's apple. Okay. Now you have music, right? Z. Z as in music. Okay. Now articulate this. Do it for yourself. All of you, please become kindergarten kids for 1 to 2 minutes so that you will understand it very properly. Oh, somebody please mute. Sureka, mute. Okay. Do you feel vibration? Just nod. Yes. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you feel that vibration on your Adam's apple, while articulating certain sounds, those sounds are technically called voiced sounds. Is that clear? Okay. So after this class, your homework or your exercise is you try to do all the sounds. It can be consonants, it can be vowels. Okay. And try. If you have any doubts, you come back. Okay. So now this is a way of identifying whether they are voiced sounds or voiceless sounds. Okay. So Jacob Grimm, when he formulated this theory called Grimm's law, okay, he was concentrating on certain consonantal sounds, and specifically, and I just I made a mention of how there are pairs of consonants: p, t, d, k, g, f, v, s, v. See, for example, when I articulate s, okay, my tip of the tongue is coming out, right? And when I articulate, and the air is, it's like, see, the simple example to identify whether they are consonants or vowels, the basic understanding is that if the air flows without any restriction from the lungs outside our mouth, they are called vowels, right? And if there is restriction of air, and then the air is released after certain restriction, we call them as consonants. That's the basic understanding of the division of the consonant and vowel sounds, right? So,
Excuse me, madam.
yes.
Once you are telling that a pair of letters, ka, ga, ta, da, ta, da, pa, ba, and one more, and in that cha, ja is not there.
It's there, cha, ja. I just
Cha,
took
ja,
the,
okay, fine.
so I took the examples which I came, which it.
Oh, fine. And in Telugu, we can say that as a hraswa aksharalu, means short sounding, very little sound.
Yeah. Please don't compare Telugu
Fine, ma'am.
sounds to the English sounds. You must remember
fine.
the fact that they are, see, all Indian languages are syllabic. But English, there is no correspondence between one to one, between the letters and the sounds of English. For example, if I say rough, I spell it as ROUGH.
Yes.
Okay. GH is silent, right? So, so I can't compare other Indian languages with that of English. So when we try to compare that and analyze and try to memorize, we will be in a wrong track. Okay. So better, what's your name? What's your name?
Lakshmi Vasundhara. My name is Lakshmi Vasundhara.
Lakshmi. So you don't try to analyze in terms of Indian languages. Okay. This is a completely different language family.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
So definitely there are pairs in terms of consonants, and in those pairs you will see one as a voiced sound and another as a voiceless sound. Okay. And you generally, though as students, when we were as students, we used to sometimes memorize, and now we understand the technicality of how those sounds are articulated. So in the set of sounds, we say in the pair like per, ba, per is seen as a voiceless, ba is seen as a voice sound. Okay. Sir, sir voiceless, z voiced. Okay. Like that you see. So Jacob Grimm, when he was trying to formulate this theory, he saw that the sound changes are occurring in certain consonants. And how are these sound changes occurring? The sound changes that are occurring in certain consonants are very systematic. Okay? And this systematic sound changes, he formulated into a theory called Grimm's law. And the example, for example, Latin. See, for example, okay, here is a table of two sets. I don't know. Can you see now? You see the first table?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you see in the first table the set of examples here, and in the second table the set of examples. Then I will discuss. Observe.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in the first set of example, you see P-A-T-E-R. So the sound there is P, okay, in Latin. So when it comes to Indo-European, okay, again we see Latin as a Germanic branch of language families, right? So P becoming F. Even if you take Sanskrit, Pita, to father now, okay? Because Sanskrit is also part of Indo-European, okay, in the Indic languages or the Eastern branch group of languages, right? You, okay, all those who did your BSc Science, can you tell me, can you tell me the scientific term for a heart? Heart. What do you call heart? Please put it on message, Amrin. What do you call heart in scientific term?
Cardial, madam.
Sorry? Please put on the message.
Cardial.
Cardial.
Okay. What is the first sound?
Ka, madam.
Oh, very good. That's what I want. So now ka, okay, ka to ha. Now heart in English, right? Ta to th. Ba to pa. Okay, da to ta. I'm taking these examples of Latin and English. Okay, and Sanskrit and English. I already made a mention of Sanskrit number of examples like bhrata, okay, vidhava, bandham, okay, to the English equivalents now. Got it? So this is how Jacob Grimm tried to analyze the systematic changes of the consonantal shift, and therefore perhaps in 500 BC he must have done this, and maybe probably several centuries from there now we see Grimm's law stands as an important landmark in what? As an important landmark in the comparative linguistics. Why comparative linguistics? Because we are comparing certain consonantal sounds with different language families. Okay? We are comparing Latin to English, Sanskrit to English. Okay, that's how Jacob Grimm's law of first sound shifting stands as an important landmark in the comparative linguistics. And definitely this law helped in grouping Germanic languages. Okay, in grouping Germanic languages, and it is seen as a very important contribution to the discourse of linguistics, especially the comparative linguistics. And of course, after Jacob Grimm, we see there were certain sounds, okay, in which changes in Germanic languages were not properly explained by Grimm. And therefore, example, one particular, centum, C-E-N-T-U-M, okay, how centum into 100, okay, in English got changed, that is from C, we write the spelling it as C-E-N-T-U-M, right, how C got changed to her according to Jacob Grimm. So, and how T got to change to the, okay, these were not properly explained by Jacob Grimm. So another linguist named Werner, okay, again he is a Danish philologist, okay, and he tried to modify certain statements of Grimm in terms of this consonant shift, okay, and therefore because these are the things which made his contribution in the comparative linguistics, this particular law is termed or named as Werner's law. Okay, so his hypothesis stated that voiceless fricative consonants became voiced. Okay, now this is, if you have a notebook in front of you, please make this statement. Karl Werner, he stated that voiceless fricative consonants became voiced. When did they become voiced? He made a condition. If the vowel in the preceding syllable was unaccented, which means there is no accent before that particular syllable. Okay, and therefore, for example, he made an explanation. For example, you take this particular word called 100. Okay, 100. Okay, now tell me what, I think in my earlier class I made a mention of a syllable, right? Words are divided into certain syllables. And a breath plus, a breath pulse is a syllable, right? So Werner, when he tried to explain this particular law, he's indicated that the Indo-European accent in the word was not on the vowel immediately preceding. So Werner accounted for certain exceptions in the Grimm's law by referring it to the placement of stress. Now, stress is another important aspect in terms of language paper, right? So, when Werner was trying to explain these alternations, okay, and therefore we see how certain words of which were not explained by Jacob Grimm were explained by Werner. For example, 100, okay, the 100. Okay, so this is one aspect which I thought I should share with you. Now we will move on to Old English. We know English is divided into certain periods, like Old English, Middle English, and Modern English. So English, when it is taken in its earliest form, we consider Old English as the oldest form. Why? Because it was spoken by the early Germanic settlers. Okay, early Germanic settlers were not in India. Okay, early Germanic settlers of Britain. That is why English, England, Britain. So when we say Old English, we have to consider how Germanic settlers tried to conquest England. And you must understand the history that there is a systematic conquest of England. And who conquered that England? Who conquered it? Definitely by certain tribes. And who are these tribes? The first tribes were the Germanic tribes. The Germanic tribes came to England in 449 AD, and by about 600 AD, the Angles and the Saxons, Angles, Angles and the Saxons, established their power, and they started settling down in Britain. And therefore, this marked the beginning of Old English period. So you have to concentrate that. There are 2 points which I made which you have to specifically.
Ma'am, once
Yes.
repeat, please.
Okay, Anu. I said England, in England, the early tribes who came to England are the Germanic people. Okay? And who are the 2 tribes who came here? The first one were the Angles, Angles, and the second one were the Saxons. Okay? These 2 Germanic tribes, they entered England in 449 AD. And by the time of course, among the many Germanic tribes, we are focusing only on these 2 tribes because their history speaks a lot in terms of language. Okay? So we are concentrating that by about 600 AD, Angles and Saxons, they established their power and they were trying to settle down in Britain. So when their settlement started, this period marked the beginning of Old English. So if you Google now, when you Google saying that periods of English literature, definitely it will say 600 AD to certain period. Okay? Then Middle English, say maybe 1100. Then it will say Middle English 1100 to 1500. Then 1500 to the modern period as a modern English. So there are certain, for the convenience sake, you see periods of English are divided in broad categories. Okay? So the first period from 600 AD, it is considered as the Old English period. Why? The Old English period is also known as Anglo-Saxon period. Why Anglo-Saxon? You must remember, Saxons and the Angles are the Germanic tribes that came to England. See, that's why Angles, England. Land occupied by Angles is England. Okay? Got it? Any doubt until here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Angles and England. Land occupied by Angles is England. Okay, so we have Old English is also called as Anglo-Saxon period. Why that name is familiar in terms of Old English period? Because of these Germanic tribes who conquered and settled almost in England. Okay, hope I cleared. So the terms Old English and Anglo-Saxon, okay, historically have this certain racial association where in terms of Old English stresses the evolutionary aspect of the language, while Anglo-Saxon has certain historical and racial association. Okay, that's why we don't say Anglo-Saxon very often, but we say Old English because our concern is language and our concern is evolution of language. Therefore, Old English stresses the evolutionary aspect of the language. So, when we think of English as a language of the people of Britain, we must also remember that Celtic, C-E-L-T-I-C, Celtic, which was spoken by Britons. Now Britons, B-R-I-T-O-N-S. Now these are the people who are said to be the earliest, which means before the Angles and Saxons, okay? these people are said to be the earliest inhabitants of this particular island. Therefore, Celtic was originally the language of several races. Now, what are these races who spoke Celtic? They are people of France, Belgium, and Spain. I repeat, several races of France, Belgium, and Spain. Their language originally was Celtic. And therefore, these three races collectively called as Celts. So when you come across the term in terms of your competitive examination, okay, you have to understand the races. Okay, when somebody asks you who are the earliest inhabitants of England, you must say Britons, Britons. When somebody asks you who are Celts, then you must say the earliest inhabitants of the races of France, Belgium, and Spain are called as Celts. So Britons in this particular island, they were very significant until the Roman conquest. Okay, until the Roman conquest, that is in 55, maybe in 55 to 54 BC. Okay, so the Roman occupation of Britain lasted from 54 BC to 410 AD. The Romans brought with them their own customs, their own language. Now, what is the language of Rome? Definitely Latin. So, Latin, which was used by the ruling and the upper classes. When Romans were having their hold on this Celtic land. Okay, so Latin was used by the ruling and the upper classes, but Celtic continued to be used by the common people. Simple example of the Indian languages, right? Where tribal languages seems to be the original languages of the native inhabitants. So when it comes to English language, Latin is taken as an example of the ruling and upper classes language. Why? Because it was from Rome. Okay, and Celtic, which is already there in this island with the collected races of France, Belgium, and Spain, continued to be used by the common people. Okay, but Celtic continued after 5 centuries. 5 centuries of what? The military rule. 5 centuries of military rule until 410 AD. The Roman legends, they were called back to Rome. So why they were called back to Rome? To defend their own capital against the Goths. Okay, so there was some problem from outside to their own country. Therefore, all the people who are in England were called back to Rome. Why? Because they want some protection from the Goths, Goths. And as a result, you see the influence of Latin declined in Britain. And the Celtic inhabitants, that is of the races from France, Belgium, and Spain. Okay, so the Celtic inhabitants were open to attack by the Picts and Scots. So in desperation, they sought the help of West Germanic sea rovers. So when they sought their help, it was like they were answered. And what is the answer now? The answer was, which means they came for help, and as a consequence of their help, the result was the disastrous to the Celts. Why? Because the Germanic tribes who came to Britain were the Angles, Jutes, and Saxons. And they were trying to, they arrived in small groups. Okay, and why did they arrive? To plunder this island. And when the natives themselves were trying to invite them, their visits became very frequent, because now the natives thought that there is a necessity of these groups to come. Okay, Angles, Jutes, and Saxons. So in course of time, they subjugated. Okay, they subjugated the native Britons, and they tried to consolidate their own settlement. And ultimately, they set up their kingdom. And it was, I think, by the end of 6th century, we see that their settlement was complete and they tried to conquer the island and they tried to make their own island. And therefore, now the land of Engles becomes England, that is England. I repeat, the land of the Engles becomes ANGLE hyphen LAND. England becomes the present England, ENGLAND. Okay, so a number of small kingdoms flourished during the Anglo-Saxon period. Of course, Anglo-Saxon period is also called as Old English period, right? And the main kingdoms that flourished during the Anglo-Saxon period are 1. Northumbria, 2. Mercia, 3. East Anglia, 4. Essex, 5. Wessex, 6. Sussex, and 7. Kent. Now please look at this graph. Now I'll show you the map here. How the small kingdoms which came during Old English period started settling down and started their own heptarchy. Okay, and these are called as heptarchic kingdoms in Old English period. Now look, now just concentrate. I made a mention of the important kingdoms that flourished during the Anglo-Saxon period. Okay, now I am showing you a map where I made a mention of how many, almost 6 to 7 kingdoms, right? So you are looking the map of England where, okay, I'll on my camera. Now just look at this map. Can you see? Now just look at this map and see the kingdoms, the small kingdoms which are there. And these kingdoms were trying to flourish and settle themselves in this particular place. And this originally was the invitation, okay, from the native inhabitants. And later you see how they were trying to subjugate them and flourish their own power. Okay, so mighty power, or whoever is might is right syndrome. Okay, might is right syndrome, where the powers are seen. Okay, so hope I am clear in terms of the historical evolution of Old English. Shall I move on to the next topic?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. So now we will move on to the dialects. Okay, see, English as a language. For convenience sake, we are telling that there are 3 periods in terms of English language. That is Old English, Middle English, and Modern English. Just now we have seen how, what is the origin of the term England, okay, and how what Germanic races started settling down in England, right? And what is the influence of Latin in terms of the Romans, okay? Now we are moving to the next important topic called dialects. Now you know what is the difference between a language and a dialect, okay? Can any one of you please unmute yourself and tell me what is the difference between a language and a dialect? Any one of you?
Only speaking is dialect, madam. Written also language.
Any more?
If there is a slight change in language, it's called dialect. If there is a huge change, it's called language.
Very good. Repeat, please.
If there is a slight change, is known as dialect. If there is a huge change, is known as language.
Very good. For example, if I say, okay, now because we are in Telangana, we speak Telugu, right? For example, if you say, what is the language of the state? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes, madam.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the language of Telangana is Telugu, right? So when Telugu is taken as a language, okay, the dialectical variations spoken by the Telugu speaking people in different regions. For example, Telangana Telugu, Rayalaseema Telugu, Andhra Telugu, and Costa Telugu. But all these areas are speaking the same language called Telugu, right? Language is Telugu, but there are certain dialectical variations in terms of a particular language. Okay. So in English also, we consider English as a language. Okay. Now, we are looking at the variety of English that was used during Old English period. That's why I am trying to draw your attention towards the dialects, especially Old English dialects. Okay? So during Old English period, we see the variety of English that was used, okay, differed from one region to another region. You must also remember the regions. I said Essex, Wessex, Sussex, Northumbrian as some kingdoms, right? Small kingdoms that were trying to establish their own power, okay, during the Old English period. So when language is considered, okay, during Old English period, we have the variety of English that is used from one region to another region. In other words, we can say that there were dialectical variations during Old English period. Okay, but as per the written records, we consider only the records which are available, and we try to analyze how those dialects were different from one region to another region. So as per the research available, we say that there are 4 dialects. Okay, please make a note if you have a pen and pencil in front of you. So during Old English period, we have 4 significant dialects. Number 1, okay, I will try to send what? Oh my God. Okay, you just look at the chat box here and just see the first one. I said there are 4 dialects, right? So I'm trying to draw your attention for the first dialect during Old English period. So the first dialect is Kentish. Okay, Kentish. Now what is Kentish? This is the speech of the Jutes, okay, who settled in Kent. Now you please, okay, let me on my camera. You see this Heptaric kingdom and you see the Kent. These were the, can you see me? Yeah. So this is the tribe which settled, okay, Kent. So the dialectical variation which is in Kent is called Kentish. And the tribes who were speaking this is the Jutes. Okay. So Kentish is the first important dialect during Old English period. And this is a speech of the Jutes who settled in the area called Kent. We say Rayalaseema Telugu. Why? Because Telugu that is spoken as a dialectical variation in Rayalaseema is Rayalaseema Telugu, right? And all the HMTV news which you see is of RV6 or HMTV news, and the language, the dialectical variation you see in that is the Telangana Telugu. ETV, again, see, okay, for example, that this is only an analysis of how you try to see the dialectical variations in terms of language, okay? So in order to understand it in a proper way, I am trying to bring in the native examples. So the second dialect is West Saxon. Okay, West Saxon. And this particular dialect is spoken in the region south of whatever the map which I have shown you, south of Thames. spoken in the south of Thames. Now, where is Thames? All those things, you please look at the geographical map and try to analyze it, okay? So, the first dialect is Kentish, the second dialect is West Saxon, and the third dialect is Mercian. Okay? Mercian is another important dialect among the Old English dialects, and this is spoken in the area extending from Thames to Humber. Okay, so this is another dialect, and the last dialect that can be considered during Old English period is Northumbrian. Northumbrian. Okay, and this is spoken in Humber. So, among these 4 dialects during Old English period, the third one and the fourth one, that is Mercian and Northumbrian. Okay, both these are spoken by Angles. Mercian and Northumbrian are spoken by Angles. Now, who are Angles? I already made a mention of these other tribes, right? Germanic tribes who invaded England. Okay, and they have certain characteristics in common, and therefore they are grouped as Anglian. Okay, they are grouped as Anglian. And the modern or the present day standard English, or you can say the modern English which we are studying now, is a direct descendant of the Anglian dialect. Okay, Anglian dialect of whom? Anglian dialect of the Midland. Okay, and how did it happen? Through Old English period and West Saxon through Old English period. Okay, so among the 4 dialects which I have mentioned now, that is the Kentish, West Saxon, Mercian, and Northumbrian. When a question in a competitive exam arises, like what are the important dialects of Old English period, then we have to our answer should be on the fingertips, okay, right? Saying that there are 4 prominent dialects during Old English period, namely Kentish, West Saxon, Mercian, and Northumbrian. And among the 4 important dialects, which stands as an important dialect? If a question arises like that, then your answer should be definitely West Saxon dialect. West Saxon dialect. Now you may ask me why among the 4 dialects, why one particular dialect stands as a very prominent dialect? Why so much of importance to one particular dialect? Okay, there are certain reasons. One, Wessex was a politically stable kingdom. These are the reasons. Okay. Now, reasons for why West Saxon dialect is said to be a very prominent dialect. The first reason which I say is political stability. Okay. Wessex is a place again. Okay. I said the kingdoms, Wessex, Sussex. Okay. So, Wessex was a politically stable kingdom, while there are only few intrigues, and therefore that was the order of the day. So the first important point for the West Saxon dialect to be a very prominent dialect during Old English period is its political stability. Okay? Okay, now the second reason that needs to be considered is most of the literary works, okay? Literary works. Most of the literary works that came during this particular period were written only in West Saxon dialect. Okay? That is why this particular dialect seems to be an important dialect during Old English period. And you know the famous English epic of Old English period, right? Can anyone of you tell me what is the important epic of Old English period?
Beowulf.
Paradise.
Homer wrote, madam. I didn't-
Yeah, please look at the chat box now. This is a famous work. Okay, Beowulf is the first English epic that came during Old English period, and of course the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle also, which was compiled by the then king called King Alfred, right? So these two important literary works, they came in the West Saxon dialect. So this must be the second reason for which West Saxon dialect stands as an important dialect during Old English period. Okay, so I said the first reason is the political stability of the Wessex as a stable kingdom. The second one is the literary works that came during this particular period came only in West Saxon dialect. And the third reason is there are many, see, for example, why? Yeah. Anybody's life is on, of all those who believe in the existence of quote unquote the superpower, you see the hymns in the early morning, or religious hymns or chants, okay? They give you a lot of peace, right? So during this particular period, there were number of riddles, there were number of hymns, there were number of religious hymns, and of course the medical doctrines were written in West Saxon dialect. Okay, this is the third reason. Okay, number of, or you can, very important point you can talk about is the medical documents. Okay, the treatise on the medical document came in West Saxon dialect during this particular period. Okay, this might be another reason for this dialect to be a very prominent dialect during Old English period. Okay, and the last important point of the West Saxon dialect to be an important dialect during Old English period is the kings of Wessex, especially King Alfred, who tried to bring unification of England, because it is divided into certain small kingdoms, right? Chief kingdoms. And King Alfred, he tried to bring, that is kings of Wessex, especially King Alfred, స్విచ్ బంద్ చేసిండ్రా, డిస్కనెక్ట్ అయింది, ఇంటర్నెట్ స్విచ్ బంద్ చేసిండ్రా. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Yeah. So these are the four important points with which we can understand that West Saxon dialect stands as an important dialect during Old English period.
Ma'am,
Okay.
fourth point, ma'am.
Yeah, fourth point, ma'am.
Fourth point. Yeah. Time is up. Somebody is reminding me that time is up. Yeah, I'm concluding here now. I repeat for the sake of all those who asked. The fourth point is that the kings of Wessex, Wessex, Wessex is a kingdom, okay? Especially King Alfred, he tried to bring the unification of England. Okay, that was one reason. The second reason was, when he tried to bring this unification, there were the West Saxon dialect was used across the country. Okay, when it was used across the country, it is seen as a representative standard language during the Old English period. Okay, that's why it seems to be an important dialect. Hence, I conclude this session with these points, and we shall meet in our next session for further discussion. Just to recollect, we made a mention of few points. We have seen the Germanic, we have seen the descent of English, we have seen the historical evolution of English, we have seen the kingdom of the kingdom. Please mute. We have seen the kingdom. We have seen how the small kingdoms led to the unification. We have seen the Roman conquest. Then we have moved to the Germanic tribes. Then we have discussed the dialects during Old English period. And lastly, we made an analysis of how West Saxon dialect among the 4 prominent dialects of Old English period stands as a significant dialect. Okay. With this, I stop my class. And all best wishes. We shall meet further. I believe tomorrow is a holiday, though I have a class tomorrow. I was told by the coordinator that tomorrow we are not meeting because of Diwali. Maybe we will see in our next Friday class. Happy Diwali to all of you.
Diwali, madam.
Happy Diwali.
Diwali, ma'am.
Happy Diwali, ma'am.
Happy Diwali. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hey, thank you, ma'am. Guys, happy Diwali.
Thank you. I wish you the same.
You too. I wish you the same. Happy Diwali to everyone.
Okay.